But I want to start off today's show by talking about Giannis Antetokounmpo because there was a time where Giannis Antetokounmpo was the best player in the world. Now, depending on who you talk to, some people thought it was at the beginning of the 2019 season when LeBron left for Cleveland to go to Los Angeles. Giannis would win back-to-back regular season MVPs. I really think it started when he won the 2021 NBA championship with the Milwaukee Bucks, put up that historic 50-point game in Game 6 to overcome the Phoenix Suns. And that's when I really thought Giannis took off. But ever since then, I really thought it was a 2 year window for Giannis, right? It was that season where if you really look hard at that season, it was the 72 game season that was shortened by 10 games, which, in my opinion, was for the better. But nonetheless, it was shortened by 10 games. The NBA postseason started in May, it went to July. The Suns had that Chris Paul, Devin Booker team led by DeAndre Ayton, who was a really good team. And then, of course, you had Milwaukee, who undisputably had the best player in the series in Giannis, but Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday obviously came up huge for them, along with Bobby Portis, Brooke Lopez, and some of those other big pieces. But I thought during that postseason run and then the year after, where the Bucks were easily the number one seed going into it, and then they flame onto the second round. Game 7, Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics. They knock off the Bucks. Celtics end up going to the NBA Finals that year to take on the Golden State Warriors. That was the year where the Warriors won their last championship. Steph, Clay, Draymond, Steve Kerr, sort of their last run together alongside Jordan Poole. But then something happened where during that offseason, Giannis's camp started to get impatient because I think that Giannis believed at that point in time that he was the best player in the NBA, that he wanted to capitalize on the window, that like LeBron James did in Cleveland, he wanted to maximize every winning opportunity he could. And the Bucks, they made a big splash. They worked with the Celtics and Blazers. They trade Drew Holiday, who ends up going from Milwaukee to Portland to Boston, and in exchange, the Bucks end up getting Damian Lillard. And what happened there is that season, Nikola Jokic goes on to win not only the NBA Finals MVP, but with the dominant performance that he had in the playoffs, and especially over the Heat in the excuse me, in the NBA Finals. In the NBA Finals, mind you, that featured that Heat team that beat the Bucks in the first round of the playoffs because Giannis Antetokounmpo was hurt. So, with that being said, the last couple postseasons, Giannis was hurt. They would end up losing to Miami, and then last year, obviously, they flame out early. You had the Adrian Griffin move where they go from 30 and 13 or something along those lines. They fire him, they bring in Doc Rivers, and really, ever since that championship in 2021, they have been a dysfunctional organization. And if you remember, Coach Bud that year was on the hot seat until they won the championship, which bought him a couple more years. Oh, like Michael Malone in Denver. But between Giannis and injuries, between the Bucks team struggling, between the emergence of new NBA stars, Nikola Jokic I already mentioned, Victor Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, Luka Doncic, not only making the NBA Finals with the Dallas Mavericks, but then getting traded from Dallas to the glitz and glamour of Los Angeles. And of course, you still have LeBron, Steph Curry out in the East, the emergence of Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, even the Cavaliers with Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley, and again with the Milwaukee team. Giannis struggling with injuries, Damian Lillard out, the team not being very good, the team being buried in the East. It almost feels like Giannis has been buried. And I think Giannis went from being the best player in the world, undisputably for 2 seasons, to now, arguably, he may not even be considered the top five player in the sport, as great as he is. And he is incredible, and he has great length. But to me, the difference between the three dominant big men in the league right now, which are obviously Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, is that Giannis doesn't have the jump shot, right? And he doesn't have the passing, and he doesn't have the ball handling that Jokic and Wemby have. And so we look at Giannis like he's not a very good free throw shooter. He's not a very good shooter in general. He is a dominant player. He's a good guy. He's given back to the Milwaukee community. Everybody in Milwaukee loves him. But I think the frustration for him is yes, it's about winning because winning, you're on a bigger stage. People get to see you more as you advance in the playoffs. You know, the more you advance in the playoffs, the more you're on regular cable or broadcast television, and we get to be reminded how great you are. But I think the frustration is, while that is going on, and again, some of it is he's hurt, some of it has been the team. It has been the emergence of these other stars, and Giannis has almost been forgotten about. So I understand why Giannis wants out. Was that I thought he should have asked out the year after Damian Lillard got there and it didn't work out, which I thought it was going to work out. I was all for the Bucks taking a big swing. But then the NBA went for this transition where we're going from you absolutely need superstars, the more superstars you have, the more championships, to now with the way the NBA salary cap and the second apron works. We've seen this the last few years. You know, we saw it with Denver, we saw it with Boston, and even to an extent this year we saw it with Oklahoma City. You need one superstar, you need a star, whether that is Jalen Brown or Jason Tatum, whichever one you want to put in that order, Jamal Murray, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren, and then you need a bunch of role players, a bunch of 3-and-D guys. And I think Golden State would be really fun. Steph, Giannis, I would think they'd have to move off Jimmy Butler's contract. But with how good the West is, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Minnesota, Houston, Lakers, you know, even the Suns this year, Clippers, etc. I'm not sure that Steph and Giannis and no bench and no role players is a championship team in today's NBA. Meanwhile, if the Knicks were able to keep all their pieces outside of Karl Anthony Towns, I think if you do a Cat for Giannis swap, Cat would almost feel like he'd be back in the day with his early start in the Minnesota Timberwolves, where he'd be almost all alone. But you would have Jalen Brunson, who can be the leader, he can be the floor general. It would almost be like Kevin Durant getting traded to Golden State instead of signing with Golden State. Because when Kevin Durant went to Golden State, yes, he helped them win a championship. But that was ultimately Steph Curry's team. Now, you can make an argument it was because Steph won a championship. But Jalen Brunson is one of the most likable athletes to ever step place in New York, and they signed him as a free agent, and he has completely taken over that franchise. To me, and I think Giannis is the perfect fit for Mike Brown, defensive minded head coach, but I think if you keep OG and Anobi, you keep Josh Hart, maybe you move on Mitchell Robinson, because Giannis and Mitchell Robinson, two big shooters, you know, seem like that's sort of a conflict there. But I think if you keep most of your role players, I think Jalen Brunson and Giannis Antetokounmpo work together. I think the best shot for Giannis to win a championship next year would be in New York. I think he's wasting his time in Milwaukee. We've seen what the Bucks owner Jimmy Haslam. Yes, that same Jimmy Haslam that owns the Cleveland Browns. We've seen what he is like as an owner, dysfunction, and we know the Milwaukee fans love Giannis. But I think just like LeBron and Cleveland and even Los Angeles and Miami, it's like, hey, everywhere LeBron left, outside of the first time in Cleveland, yes, he left, but he brought us at least one, and in the case of Miami, two championships. If Giannis leaves Milwaukee, it will be, hey, we've had the best run of our franchise. You know, Michael Redd was a very good player. I remember those Brandon Jennings teams. Like, the Bucks had some pretty good teams. But our best run in the history of our franchise was because of that guy. He brought us a championship. And I know Bucks fans are frustrated because they feel like they're wasting Giannis' window. And I get it because we as Cavs fans feel like if the Warriors didn't have their dynasty with Steph Curry and Durant, we would have had a dynasty, and we feel like only getting one championship out of the 3 years that we have LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love does feel like a little bit of a waste. But he did bring you a championship. And so for that, to me, the Bucks fans should be grateful, and it's just time. I think Golden State would be the most fun. If the Spurs get them, by God, Giannis and Wemby, I don't know how you're going to score. That's a dynasty. I sort of feel the same way about Houston, even if they'd have to give up Sengun. You have Kevin Durant, Edmund, Thompson, Giannis, but I don't think those two trades are necessarily in the cards. I think the Bucks should work with Giannis. I think clearly he wants to go to the Knicks. Now, if I'm the Bucks, I don't prefer to trade him to the Eastern Conference to haunt me for the next 5, 10 years. But I am looking for the best offer I possibly can, and I do believe Giannis should be dealt by Thursday's trade deadline. Listen, the NBA loves to, for the one time a year they can, ruin on the NFL's parade. The NFL's parade is Super Bowl week, obviously. The last couple of years, Luka Doncic gets dealt to the Los Angeles Lakers. Kevin Durant a few years ago gets dealt to the Phoenix Suns. I think this year, during Super Bowl week, what we will be talking about is Giannis getting dumped by the Milwaukee Bucks. Like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.